It is Thursday, May 23rd, and the Splash Zone is back in your life. I'm Matt Modi, and I have two NBA bangers for you guys to lock in for tomorrow's game. So I'm recording this early, getting it to you the night before the game is played, but we got game two, Mavericks versus Timberwolves, and I have two bets for that game for you guys to lock in. Of course, before I can go into those picks, we got to do a recap from the last time you saw me, which was Wednesday. So I'm recording this before Thursday's game between the Pacers and the Celtics have finished. Hopefully that game ends up going really well. We have a 2-0 day there. But Wednesday, I do have an official recap, which was amazing. 3-0 on Wednesday. We cashed all three of our bangers. We got Mavericks plus 4.5. We got Kyrie Irving over 20.5 points. And we got Derek Jones Jr. under 9.5 points. Amazing, amazing day, which was desperately needed. We were down 3 of the 4 days heading into Wednesday. So having that cash for us, having all 3 cash was incredible. On the entire season, we are up a little over 111 units, which is incredible. The playoffs specifically hadn't quite gone as well as the regular season did, but hopefully Wednesday's 3-0 day, hopefully another 2-0 day. By the time you're watching this, we went 2-0 on Thursday, and then hopefully these picks do also do well, and we catapult ourselves into a nice hot streak for these playoffs. If you are not already, I would appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button. And then for this specific video, if you could comment. Then the last thing I'll mention before I get into the bangers is that I do have a dub club for $5 a month. It gets you everything that I play between NBA, MLB, WNBA, and then of course football season when that starts. It gets you the same plays the dub club does that I give out for free on YouTube and on Twitter. I just send them out early. So whether you don't want to watch the YouTube videos, whether you don't have time, or you'd rather just get stuff in before the odds change, right? Like by the time I record a video, then edit a video, and then post a video, sometimes the odds change. And unfortunately, there really isn't anything I can do about that. So that was my dub club was my way to combat that. So again, if you're interested, check it out in the description of the video. That's enough of that. You're only as good as your most recent banger. So let's hope that we can have another great day on Friday, starting with the Timberwolves minus 4.5, minus 115 odds at BetMGM. So to be honest with you guys, this is a system play. It's backing the home favorite that lost game one outright. Admittedly, this system play did burn me last series, right? It did apply to the Denver Nuggets, who lost game one at home. I put them a unit and a half on them in game two. They also lost that game. But this is a system that has cashed 60% of the time over the last literally 82 examples of this. Thank you to Hedge and Henry on Twitter for giving me that information. And this is a system play that went 7-1 last year. Now, did not hit this year. It was 0-1 this year, but it was an absolute cash cow for me last year. This system of backing again the home favorite that lost game one. And we can go through it, right? I can give you every single example of last year's NBA playoffs where this came through for us. It happened 4 times in the first round of the NBA playoffs last year. And we can just go through it. So Suns versus Clippers. Suns were the home team. They lost game one. They won the series in 5, but they did lose game one. Game two, they came out and won game two by 14 points, covering the spread there. Happened in the Grizzlies versus Lakers series. The Lakers were the 7 seed. The Grizzlies were the 2 seed. The Grizzlies were favored in game one. The Lakers won as the road underdog in game one. And then the Grizzlies came out and won game two by 10 points. 2-0 in the West. Let's head to the East. The Heat, the 8 seed, playing the Bucks, the 1 seed. The Heat won game one outright. They won that series 4-1. Guess what was the only game that they lost? That's right. That would be game two. The Bucks came back and won game two by 16. And that was actually without Giannis. And then in the Knicks versus Cavs series, another series in which the team that won the series, which was obviously the Knicks, won in 5 games, but the Cavs were the home favorite in this series. Knicks won game one. Knicks won the series in 5. Guess what was the only game that the Cavaliers won? That would be game two, in which they won by 17 points. That's the first round of last year's playoffs. The system went 4-0. We had 3 more examples of this in the second round of the playoffs, right? We had the Sixers versus Celtics series. The Sixers won game one, huge underdogs without Joel Embiid. The Celtics came back and won game two by 34 points, and Embiid actually played in that game. Then we have the Heat-Knicks series. The Heat, as the 8 seed, were underdogs in that one. They won game one straight up. And then the Knicks came back. They won game two by 6 points as a 5.5 point favorite. So it's really the only game that was even close last year in which the team did cover, but they covered by the hook. Very close, still won and covered. And then in the West, we only had one example of this in the second round, Lakers-Warriors. Lakers underdog against the Warriors, won game one outright. Then the Warriors won game two by 27 points. 7-0 in the first two rounds of last year's playoffs. The only time it did not cash last year was the Heat versus Celtics series. The Heat won game one as big underdogs. They took a 3-0 lead in that series. So not only did the home team not win and cover game two, they didn't even win outright. And then this year, the system is 0-1 with the Nuggets losing in game two. I know that was very long-winded, but I wanted to show you exactly the detail of saying, no, this is a system play that's something that you can rely on 60% of the time overall. 7-1 last year, 7-2 if you include the one game that it did not hit this year. In terms of the actual matchup, I do think that there are a lot of advantages that the Wolves will be able to take advantage of in game two that they didn't in game one. Mostly just being a bounce back in terms of a shooting performance for both Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns, right? Edwards only scored 19 points, didn't shoot well. Karl-Anthony Towns only scored 16 points, didn't shoot well. They did get some good shooting from Jaden McDaniels and Kyle Anderson, but they're going to need their two studs to show up, which they did not in game one. I think they will in game two. Overall, I do think that the Timberwolves bounce back. That's our first play. Next up, obviously we're sticking in the same game here, as this is the only game on. Taking Karl-Anthony Towns over 19.5 points, -115 odds at FanDuel. So counting on a Timberwolves bounce back. I'm also counting on a Karl-Anthony Towns bounce back specifically and taking him to go over 19.5 points. Now, we've seen this from Karl-Anthony Towns in these playoffs before. We've seen it in a lot of playoffs. He does have these games where he doesn't shoot well, but this year specifically, he has shown the ability to bounce back, right? He's played well in really important games in the playoffs, like Game 7 against the Nuggets. Anthony Edwards couldn't quite find his groove in that game. Karl-Anthony Towns was massive in that game. He scored 23 points. All 23 were desperately needed. And he played legitimately good defense on Jokic as well. If he can show up in a Game 7 against the defending champs in Denver, he can show up in a Game 2 at home. And what I like about Game 1, I didn't like the fact that he, again, only scored 16 points. I like the fact that he took 20 field goal attempts. Now, he didn't shoot well. He was 6 of 20 from the field, and he was 2 of 9 from deep. But Cat's offense is going to be the swing of this series. If his offense is good, I think the Timberwolves win the series. If his offense is bad, I think they probably don't. Now, that's not that hot of a take. Hey, if the Timberwolves, if one of their good players plays well, they're going to win. It's obviously very reductive, but I do think that his offense specifically is going to be very important. Anthony Edwards is going to get the Derrick Jones Jr. treatment. He's going to get the double teams. He's going to get all that stuff. Karl-Anthony Towns is not. They're going to need Karl-Anthony Towns to win his one-on-one matchups, and I think he's able to bounce back and come through for us in Game 1, right? I mean, he only needs to score 20 points, and he took 20 shot attempts last game. He's most likely going to shoot better from the field, including the three-point line, which obviously would help this. And he actually attempted more shots than Anthony Edwards as well. He took 20 shots. Anthony Edwards only took 16. So his offense in the series is going to be super valuable. And I do think that the matchup advantage they have is Karl-Anthony Towns, right? Like the Mavericks, they're going to keep their centers guarding Rudy Gobert. And in general, the Mavericks want to keep their centers close to the basket. With Gobert in the lineup, that's totally fine. What that means is they have Karl-Anthony Towns spacing the floor and having the size advantage of whoever's guarding him. Most often, it's going to be PJ Washington. And then we're going to have the off chance, the 10 minutes per game, where Rudy Gobert is not on the floor, and they're going to try to guard Karl-Anthony Towns with one of their centers, whether that be Daniel Gafford or Derek Lively. Now, the Mavericks really don't want that to happen. They only had Gafford or Lively guard Karl-Anthony Towns from a little over 3 minutes of the game. But in those 3 minutes, he put up three-point attempts specifically. He put up 8 shots overall. Now, he only made one of those 3. He was 1 of 1 against Gafford. He was 0 of 2 against Lively. But those are shots that he's going to need to get up. And then but the matchup he will have majority of the time is going to be against PJ Washington. And it was just a bad shooting performance from Karl-Anthony Towns against PJ Washington. But I don't necessarily think that it's a matchup that Karl-Anthony Towns is going to continue to struggle against, right? He played against PJ Washington twice in the regular season, was guarded by him for a total of 8 minutes, and he cooked him. He scored 23 points in that 8 minutes, shot 9 of 17 from the field. He shot 2 of 3 from deep. Now, the caveat here, it's a massive caveat, was PJ Washington played for Charlotte during that time. It was before he was traded to the Mavericks. So take that with a huge grain of salt. Just more so illustrating the fact that I don't think this is a one-on-one matchup that Karl-Anthony Towns really should struggle that much against, to the extent in which he did in game one. And if the Timberwolves want to even up the series, they want to win the series, they're going to need Karl-Anthony Towns to take advantage of this matchup. I think he should be able to. In the regular season, the Mavericks gave up the 7th most points to both Cat's shooting and his scoring profile. I think he bounces back in this one. I think he cashes this out for us. And that's all we got. 2 bangers for you guys to lock in. Let's hope T-Wolves cover. Let's hope Karl-Anthony Towns goes over his point prop. And that's all we got. So again, I appreciate everybody for watching. Make sure to like the video, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and have a good one.